Hi, I'm Anquinette Crosby, surrounded by this beautiful installation called Music of the Spheres.
It's the brainchild of Martha Jackson Jarvis. She's a renowned mixed media artist. You can see these colorful orbs every time you stroll past the Van Ness UDC metro station.
More on this amazing work when I return, but first, welcome to Artico, art in your community. The 7 spheres around me are comprised of carnelian, glass, jade, stone, and steel.
They vary in height, ranging from 3 to 10 feet. This installation was commissioned by Fannie Mae. It has been beautifying this Northwest neighborhood since 2003.
All across DC, you can see the beauty marks of street art, stencils, murals, graffiti.
Some call graffiti a crime, while others a crafty and creative view of our culture. Perhaps our next story will help you decide.
I got involved in art from, as I was a child. It started just from picking up crayons and pencils, and it started from there, and it just never stopped. I studied art and design in art school and at university. My first job out of school was at a computer company doing design work. When I moved to DC, I moved to this neighborhood, and there was a lot of graffiti in the neighborhood, and that's kind of what spawned the graffiti and the classes and everything else. In my definition, graffiti art is public art that is written. Oftentimes, it's letters, words, nicknames, tags, things of that nature that individual artists spread throughout the city to gain notoriety and become familiar with the community that they're in. When you talk about the categories of graffiti, I think a lot of it comes down to the letter styles. So you have some styles that tend to be more rounded and circular, some styles that seem to be more rectilinear, some styles that seem to be more triangular and intersecting, and some styles, amongst those categories, some styles are very easy to read, some are harder to read. And a lot of times it just depends on the location and the time that the artist has to paint whatever they want to create. A lot of times it's purely individual, it's purely about spreading your name. That's it. It's a very, maybe a narcissistic way of looking at it. It's all about me, it's all about the artist. There are other messages that you see where it discusses equality in the community, rich versus poor. And I think that because graffiti it's a product of its environment. Graffiti was associated with the kind of like the destruction of a city. If you saw graffiti, more often you maybe didn't want to be there. And now you look at graffiti and it's still graffiti, but it could be in a totally different environment. And it's going to change as the city changes. And as cities change, it's almost taken on this aura of the opposite of what it used to mean. A lot of times people associate it with it being associated with gangs and things like that. And while there is I think there's a part of that, but I think it's a small part of it. Just like most things, it's like it only takes one negative experience to just squash the whole category. We live in a world now where everything is, particularly in the cities, like so much of it is controlled and curated. So you go out your door and it's just like, man, you need a little bit of a surprise sometimes, and sometimes we need to be, people should have the platform to say what they want to say, and if that wall would have been a gray wall, what's wrong with the little color on it, and what's wrong with the little color that is not planned by the powers that be? I, on a whim, I didn't have any vision for it. I thought it would be cool to have a graffiti class. It's just something different, and for me personally, I just wanted to experience that with other people, and it started very small. It was like a couple people here and there, and over the years, it's really blossomed. I do think people are becoming more familiar with it and seeing it as purely just self-expression, nothing more, nothing less. Depending on where it is, it's going to make a difference. If it's on someone's business, I understand that that would be a problem, but there's so many spaces, there's so many public spaces that, again, would just be empty spaces that people walk by every day. And I think it's important that you allow everybody to have a say in their community.
Black photographers like Charles have their own unique set of challenges, whether looking for gigs, trying to launch an exhibition, or just plain old networking.
For more than 30 years, the Exposure Group has been helping with these issues. The group offers a platform to improve the productivity of its members.
My 5 images are from sporting events at Howard University between 2016 and 2018.
I like icebergs and glaciers. I'm always fascinated by icebergs. To me, the formations are beautiful. It's huge nature. You feel this big when you're next to them. It's a lot of fun.
This particular image was taken downtown on the mall. It was at the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March.
I and 6 other photographers knew we didn't have enough knowledge about how to do the business or the art of photography. And the larger groups we belonged to that were primarily Caucasian didn't share stuff. It was important for me to become a member of the Exposure Group because I wanted to meet other African American photographers in the Washington, D.C. area. So we meet on the second Wednesday of every month except for July and August. And we meet at DC-TV in Brooks Mansion. Well, we bring in professionals that's out there in the field. We have other photographers that come in and talk about how they do their processes. We've also had photographers that have written books on the subject of pricing. A lot of times they want to undercut black photographers. You know, we could be doing the same job as our white counterparts. So that's a challenge for both men and for women. And women have a different challenge because with women, they want to try to push you out from getting shots. So you have to be really not aggressive, but you have to assert yourself so that you will be able to get those same shots.
We needed a stronger community where we would meet every month, pull together to create ways of giving ourselves attention, trading information, being able to refer work to each other, sharing equipment, just making things possible. Black photographers have limited markets. Some markets are limited. It's harder to be considered for assignments with institutions, governments, publications. Mainstream photographers, white that is, they come out of high school and they're given a nice camera. Even before they're high school, we have to earn ours. I mean, there's a kinship, like there is in any other field. And so, just like you have the National Medical Association, you have us locally. And we've done a lot in the past, particularly in the past 20, 25 years with gallery shows, awards programs, books.
The Exposure Group can help an up-and-coming photographer because we are seasoned, a lot of us. We are beyond 21, some of us 3 times that number. And if we don't pass it on, who's gonna learn next? We learn how to do it, have some fun, do some business, do some art. I don't think it gets better than this.
A group of artists and activists have joined forces for an evocative and compassionate exhibition. The Migrant Quilt Project carries the stories of those who died in the Arizona desert. These determined men, women, and children were headed toward and hoping for a better life. Brought down, activists believe, by immigration policies that were inhumane. The quilts on display at the Capitol Hill Arts Workshop vividly reflect and honor their loss.
The Migrant Quilt Project is a collection of quilts that are made from clothing and objects found at layup sites on the Tucson border in Arizona. The project was started in 2000. The conditions in the Arizona desert are really harsh. And so people are making their way over here illegally. And the layup sites are where they are picked up. People will leave humanitarian aid there. The materials are collected by volunteers, essentially, and again, the people who were providing humanitarian aid saw these materials there, were moved by how profound the situation was. So they started picking them up to, in the same vein as the AIDS memorial quilt, to memorialize the people who had died. About 150 people die annually in that section of the Tucson border, which is more than any other place along the border wall. The people crossing are really people of all ages. There's been 3,300 people who've died there so far, and 10,000 across the entire border. This project spoke to us because of our mission at the Capitol Hill Arts Workshop, which is to build community through the arts. And in that mission is kind of an inherent social justice piece that, again, where art can explain things and say things that in ways that don't make the same impact as other stuff. Some of the things that are part of this are oftentimes very personal, sentimental, historic. So the other part of this is that every person's name is stitched into them. They don't know the names of all of the people who've died, and so those people are listed as unknown. The quilts really, I mean, with the people's names and their personal effects that are sewn into them, really humanize the situation that's going on there. We have 13 of them here at the Capitol Hill Arts Workshop. We don't have enough room in our gallery to house them all. The additional 5 are being displayed at the Lutheran Church of the Reformation. The exhibit opened on October 28th and will run through December 7th. For the Capitol Hill Arts Workshop, displaying quilts is a way to demonstrate how art can be such a powerful agent in terms of bringing awareness to political issues or to social justice issues. I mean, these are people with real lives, and they come here with dreams, and those are cut very short by these untimely and horrific deaths. I think that when you juxtapose something like quilts, which are oftentimes associated with comfort, you juxtapose those with something as extreme as these deaths in the Arizona desert, it makes a really powerful statement. It has a huge impact in ways that oftentimes other things can't.
It's a busy time of year with lots to do, including these great events. Next year marks the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. It gave women the right to vote. Starting November 25th, the National Museum of Women in the Arts is hosting the world premiere of 19th the Musical. It tells the dynamic story of women like Alice Paul, Ida B. Wells, Susan B. Anthony, and others who fought for women's suffrage. 19th the Musical is the heroic and little-known story of Alice Paul and suffragists like Carrie Chapman Catt and Ida B. Wells in their fight against the system to get women the right to vote, the 19th Amendment. We tell our story through a diverse cast, a jazz-era score, elements of gospel and spoken word, as well as dynamic movement.
We're coming up on the 100th anniversary of suffrage, the 19th Amendment. The reason that's still important is that we're still fighting for the right to vote. It's not a guarantee for us yet, and we capture a story where it tells the struggles that these women faced a century ago, and we're still facing some of these struggles today.
On December 3rd, the Library of Congress opens a new exhibit. It's at the O Museum in the Mansion. It's called Mrs. Rosa Parks in Her Own Words. The exhibition focuses on things people don't know about her, including the fact that she lived here in D.C. at the O Museum for 10 years. The event includes a performance by Darius Rucker, former lead singer of the band Hootie and the Blowfish.
Musicianship believes that music can do much more than just soothe and entertain.
This youth development organization believes it also enriches the lives of its students, their families, and the communities where they live.
The Musicianship is a nonprofit organization that facilitates music lessons, so that'll be brass, woodwind, and percussion, as well as choral programs. Though in the summer we increase the depth and the breadth of our programming to include music business programs, music media programs, as well as dance programs. We have young people who range from kindergarten all the way up through and past high school in some cases. But the goal obviously is just to leverage the arts and ultimately make them more successful. Part of my impetus behind starting the musicianship was my own story. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, was a less than average student, and so it was really music that kept me focused, it kept me off the street. It inculcated knowledge and allowed me to sort of harness some of the socio-emotional skills that I needed to ultimately be successful.
Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright.
Diane Granger was a wonderful human being, a wonderful musician, and a good friend of mine. She and I marched on the drum line at Howard University together because at the time she was a music educator. And ironically, her and her father had a very similar vision, and the three of us created the musicianship together. Greg Granger, who is a really fantastic musician and actually played the drums for Whitney Houston at the height of his career. And so because of a lot of his industry relationships, we've been able to garner the support of a lot of industry successful musicians who come back and speak to young people on occasions, and they're mentors, and they do master classes throughout the year. And it really gives our young people some inspiration and something to look up to.
What inspires me to do this is because I get to continuously do my artwork, because during school I really don't have the time to just sit down and do art unless I'm in art class. And another reason that got me to come back here is because I just enjoyed the people I got to deal with, my instructors, my fellow students. Definitely Jeff, because Jeff is an awesome dude. He just made it like probably the best summer I've had in a long time.
Tonight we're really excited. It's my favorite event of the year. It's Diane's Recital, which we do each year in Diane Granger's honor. And anyone who has ever been to Diane's Recital can tell you just how festive and how jovial an event it is each year. One of the musicianship's biggest partners has been the Department of Employment Services, with whom we partner on the Summer Youth Employment Program. And so through that program in particular, we have young people who participate in the musicianship for several years.
I was wondering about like finding a summer job because I needed a little bit extra cash. So me finding the musicianship was mostly an accident because it was a place I wanted to work at.
When I think about the musicianship's markers of success, I think mostly about the student stories themselves, young people who are able to matriculate to go on to universities and colleges.
There is always something to improve on within yourself, so just practice that. Get to know yourself. And if you want to join the musicianship, I think that you should. It's always something to do, whether you don't know how to play or you do know how to play. You can come learn something new about yourself, about music, business, dance, whatever it could be. Just come.
The National Museum of the American Indian claims the world's largest collection of native art and artifacts.
It has 3 facilities, one in New York and a resource center in Suitland, Maryland. The third is this majestic building on the National Mall, which opened its doors in 2004. It's where we explored the museum's past, present, and future with its current director and a founding trustee.
Well, the museum was, of course, established to celebrate the culture and histories of the thousands of Native American communities. Both past and present.
We needed a place that we were comfortable with, that showed who we were without having to pimp our religions or without having to disrespect everything that we value and prize in our societies and in our traditions. But that's how we envisioned this museum.
Our collections span the entirety of North and South America, literally from the Arctic Circle to Tierra del Fuego. And also Native Hawaiians. So we have quite a broad charter and a lot of ground to cover. We always have, or almost always have, our 4 major galleries filled, a smaller gallery downstairs as well. We usually change the large galleries, a large gallery each year. I think the most important thing when dealing with Native American art is, first of all, not to have any assumptions about what that is. You know, when people think about Native American art, they think about pots and baskets and that sort of thing, beadwork. And all of those things do in fact exist, and they're wonderful, and the artists are extraordinarily talented. But Native artists are now working in all of the media that other artists are working in.
I'm very happy with all of this, and it's enabled us to do things like have this amazing foundational exhibit, Nation to Nation, which I wish we could have done on day one. Treaties are not just things of the past. The treaties are living, viable documents, and they are exercised, and the way they are alive is that they are exercised every day, and they're exercised by Native people, by non-Native people, that everyone who's living here is living on treaty land or land that is the sovereign land of Native peoples. And it's good for everyone to know that and to learn that and to understand that. So we wanted that to be, we wanted to bring the ancient aspects of treaty making and parchment into the modern era.
I think we're sitting in one of the highlights of the museum. This is the Americans Gallery. This gallery sort of explores America's interest and its seeming need to identify with Native Americans. And so in this particular hall, we're showing all these different ways that Native American imagery is invoked to sell everything from motorcycles to football teams. And we invite the visitor to ask themselves, why would that be? What is it that we're trying to say? What does it say about Native Americans, and more importantly, what does it say about us as individuals? We have a number of things going on in the next year or so. The most important is the National Native American Veterans Memorial, which will open on Veterans Day in 2020. Most people wouldn't know that Native Americans serve in the United States Armed Forces at an extraordinary rate, and I think it means a great deal to them that they're going to be honored in the nation's capital in this way. We also have some interesting exhibitions coming online, most notably an exhibition by an artist named Preston Singletary. He works in glass, and you wouldn't believe what these artists can do with glass these days. So he makes these beautiful figures, bowls, even carvings, really. And so we're very excited about that show. I should also mention at the Smithsonian American Art Museum, at the Renwick Gallery, they're bringing in a wonderful exhibition called Hearts of Our People, and it's art by Native American women.
The first thing to know about Native artists is there are 573 Native nations that have a relationship with the United States, a formal relationship. And we come from ancient continuums, and we have things to tell you. We have things to teach you. And the best way to deal with that, I've found, is through the art world, because someone can look at a basket that says the same thing that a politician may say, or the same thing that a religious figure may say, and not get anything or be turned off by the people saying things, but understand that same message from the basket.
I'm very proud that our museum always brings these stories into the present and says these people are still here, and they're still active, and in many cases they are thriving. Americans have been taught to prefer an imaginary Indian that's been dreamed up over the years through, you know, history books and product logos and sports team mascots. And part of the reason they prefer them is those are sort of idealized figures. they're not fully human. And they're much easier to deal with than real people, because real people have problems, they make demands, they blockade pipeline construction and things like that. And so we're trying to help everyone understand that these real Indians are a lot more interesting than the imaginary Indians that we've all been taught about.
What a wonderful museum, so please go check it out. Well, you know, right now it's a little nippy out here, so I'm gonna finish my hot chocolate, go warm up my hands, but I want everyone to have a great Thanksgiving. Until next time, I'm Anquinette Crosby, and always remember to follow your art.
This program was produced by WHUT, Howard University Television, and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.